We're about to get into a conversation tonight, hosting the Principal Secretary at Labour. But before we do that, the government is stepping up efforts to streamline Kenya's labour export system amid rising concerns over the exploitation of citizens seeking work abroad. The Prime Cabinet Secretary Mwadime says investigations are underway to expose rogue agents preying on vulnerable job seekers. This comes just days after young Kenyans testified before a Senate committee about their experiences.
The Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs has reaffirmed its commitment to sanitize the labour migration sector in the wake of growing public outcry over the mistreatment of Kenyan workers abroad.
We are determined to bring order in this particular area, so we are following very, very closely so that we can have a hygienic process of assisting Kenyans who want to go and work in different countries.
Prime Cabinet Secretary Mwadime, addressing the National Assembly plenary on Wednesday, disclosed that ongoing investigations aim to unmask individuals and agencies behind unscrupulous labor deals that continue to put the lives of Kenyans at risk.
In these machu jobs by the Ministry of Labor, Kasi Maju, yes. And then there were many Kenyans who were saying they were scammed by the Ministry of Labor under the CS Mutua. So I just want to ask the Cabinet Secretary whether they are working, what is their working relationship with the Ministry of Labor.
Mwadime further revealed that his office is working closely with the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection to harmonize operations and close existing loopholes in the deployment process,
so that we do not have a situation where the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing.
In a concerning update, the ministry also reported that there are at least 388 children born to Kenyan mothers in Saudi Arabia.
The Prime Cabinet Secretary should know that this is a very emotive issue where children who are born to Kenyan mothers living in Saudi Arabia cannot access medical care and cannot access education because they are considered not to be eligibly in the country.
In instances where the parents have no passports, they apply for replacement through the embassy. In the alternative, the embassy issues them with emergency travel documents to enable them return to Kenya.
Honorable Speaker, I'm trying to address the real situation on the ground in Saudi Arabia. Those mothers have gotten themselves a name called Kemboi. Kemboi means runaways. These are people who have zero documents. And Honorable Speaker, someone who is already running away from I don't know what cannot honestly walk into one of those offices.
Mwadime emphasized the need for a coordinated approach to labor migration and diaspora affairs to ensure no Kenyan is left vulnerable under a disjointed system. Kamchemenza for Prime Edition.
Thank you, Kamchemenza, for that report. Shadrach Mwadime, the Honorable Shadrach Mwadime, is the Principal Secretary, the State Department for Labour and Skills Development, and joins us in studio for our conversation tonight. Thank you very much, PS, for your time.
Thank you for having me here.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
I want to give you a minute to quickly respond to that story you've seen on air regarding what is ongoing.
Yeah, it's extremely sad, really, what is happening. There's no question about it. I mean, Kenyans should not be scammed at all in any way. The money that they earn out of their sweat, and they want to make their lives better by going abroad for better jobs, that should be safeguarded. The money should not be misappropriated by agencies or even as indicated by any government official. Nobody is above the law. I want to say that very explicitly, and therefore they should report such cases to the police so that whoever is found culpable at whatever senior level in government, action is taken as required.
Absolutely. Yeah. So tomorrow is Labour Day. Probably before we take stock of, or rather we start with taking stock of the achievements you've been able to make this last 1 year in terms of improving labour conditions for Kenyans generally. What have been the achievements of your State Department?
We have done a lot. We have established sector skills committees that look at every sector and come up with strategies on how we can ensure that those sectors develop. So there are more or less sector growth committees. And we are doing this in order to ensure that we increase employment opportunities for Kenyans, and not only that, so that we can secure decent working conditions for Kenyans. So there's a lot that Ministry of Labour is doing. As you know, we have quite a number of directorates. Yeah. We have the Occupational Safety and Health Directorate that looks at matters safety for Kenyans, the environment within which they work, within which they operate. We are happy that the Public Service Commission was able to allow us to employ about 95 officers recently, so that we can deploy them up to village levels, if not at county headquarters levels, you know. And then we have the Labour Commissioner's Office. We have labor inspectors, some who are employed recently, and the Public Service Commission has also promised us to employ even more, so that these labor inspectors can go to where we have industries, where we have companies, Kenyans working, to ensure that the minimum wage, first of all, is observed, and not only that, their benefits, you know, are safeguarded as required in accordance with the law. So there's a lot that we are doing. We're also trying to strengthen trade unions, to strengthen their capacities, so that they can fight strongly on behalf of their union members.
Let's talk about the youth very quickly. In light of what is going on, despite being a blot on the efforts being made by the Ministry of Labour and indeed the government, what are you going to do to inspire confidence among the youth, particularly to take up the opportunities that you are hunting on behalf of government?
Both within the economy and also outside the economy. Yes. Within the economy, what we are trying to do, again through the sector skills committees, is we want to do an analysis and see where the demand is in terms of the skills that are required. Employers over time have been complaining that the kind of graduates we produce are not able to meet their expectations. So we want to do an analysis and see where the gaps are. Now, once we get to know where the gaps are, we will inform curriculum immediately, so that young people, as they go through school, they are assured that immediately they graduate, they will be employed. So we want to make them as employable as possible, but not only within the economy, but also outside the economy, where opportunities are opening up.
You reference outside the economy very quickly, so that we get to understand why outside the economy. Is it that there is a demand for Kenyan labor? And why does it take?
The strategy is twofold.
Okay.
Number one, John, you have to appreciate that the unemployment rate in Kenya is extremely high. Out of 1 million graduates that we produce every year, you know, from primary level to tertiary, you know, colleges and universities, only 200,000 can be absorbed by our economy, both the public and the private sector. Now, you can't tell a young person who has just graduated to sit at home until the economy expands, so that then he can be absorbed. You know, you have to do the very best that you can to assist this young person, because these are human beings, and human beings are social beings. They want to develop, they want to get married, you know, they want to see success in their lives. So wherever opportunities will open up, we will push for them to capitalize on those opportunities. And mind you, even the job opportunities opening up in the international labor market, what we are pushing for is labor mobility, not labor migration. We don't want them to migrate and go and stay in those countries permanently. We want them to go make savings and remit back that which they've been able to earn. And remember, the second strategy is they will be able to meet technology as it obtains in the world currently and transfer it back home. So we will benefit in terms of know-how being transferred home, both in terms of savings and in terms of know-how. Last year, because Kenyans are very patriotic, they were able to remit back home $4.95 billion US. That's a lot of money. You can imagine we've been dependent upon foreigners to come and invest in our country. How beautiful will it be to have our own Kenyans coming back home to invest, you know, and to take care of their younger brothers and sisters whom they will employ in their companies. Yeah.
Quite interesting. You've referenced working closely with unions, and that is the movement. In terms of fair remuneration for employees and better working conditions for employees, what is the level of engagement you're having with these unions to ensure that this is achievable?
Okay, so we want to do away with the protests that you see continuously. You know, protests that take a long period of time. Yeah. We waste a lot of, you know, money in terms of the hours, you know, that have been misused, that have not been, you know, they have not been engaged profitably in terms of production of goods or services. So what we are doing is we engage in trade unions so that the moment a CBA comes to an end, we can start engaging on a new CBA. Even if that particular CBA will not have an increment in terms of possibly the wages, but in terms of other benefits, they can be looked into. Yeah. So it's not necessarily that every time you sit with the union to discuss a new CBA, you know, increase of wages is top in the agenda. There are other issues also that obtain that can make working conditions conducive to our Kenyan workers. And therefore, the best strategy for us to employ, and we're already engaged in trade unions, is right from the beginning, you know, before a CBA is signed and it takes effect. We've had discussions, we have agreed on the issues that are wanting so that going forward, you know, Kenyan workers can work in a conducive environment.
All right.
Yeah, so that's what we are doing with trade unions, and we work with them very, very closely. Unlike before, where government was shying away, you know, from sitting with trade unions, we've been forthright that they should come, sit with us, and we agree on the way forward.
Largely on the matter of unfair dismissal and exploitation, largely is left to unions. Is there a form of government intervention whatsoever to probably cushion workers from unfair dismissal or what you would say exploitation at work?
Yes, by all means. Number one, of course, as I said, we are building the capacity of the Labor Inspectorate Directorate so that we can engage Kenyan workers more or less on a daily basis. We don't have to wait until they're being dismissed. That's when we come in to engage the employer and find out why this Kenyan worker has been dismissed. So I want to be categorical on this. Kenyan employers must realize that every time a labor inspector comes knocking, they have to open their door and allow them in, so that they interact with their workers and find out whether their working environment is okay or not. We have to keep on engaging each other, you know, as often as possible. So we don't wait until somebody has been offloaded. That's when the government comes in to assist, you know, this person who has been victimized. That is the strategy that we're using, and we're happy with the Public Service Commission because early this year, they allowed us to employ about 60 occupational safety and health officers. We've also, they've allowed us also to employ more officers in the Labor Inspectorate Department. So we are building our capacity so that we can be able to reach Kenyans even up to the grassroots level.
All right. I want us to take a small breather. When we come back, we'll speak about tomorrow and probably what Kenyans should expect from the government. Don't go too far. We're coming back in a minute. Welcome back. You're watching the Prime Edition. I'm still here with the Principal Secretary, State Department for Labor and Skills Development. But some developing news coming in from Nairobi is that the Member of Parliament for Kasipul Kabondo in Homa Bay County, that is Charles Ongondowere, has been gunned down, and that means then that he is dead. That's very sad news coming in. The Member of Parliament for Kasipul Kabondo is dead, gunned down this evening. We don't have details just yet. Of course, as they continue to come, we will be updating you. P.S., let's continue with our conversation. That's some sad news really coming in.
Yes, my sincere condolences to the family of the deceased. Yeah, that's very, very sad.
Very sad. I was interested to see the numbers the president was talking about today in terms of how much Kenyans had saved for 60 years through NSSF, being 380 billion, but says over the 2 years that there have been reforms in the NSSF Act, you've seen the saving of over 250 billion. Tell us about cushioning the labor market that you defend from the vagaries of retirement and all this through NSSF.
In fact, our object, John, is to increase the amount to possibly 1 trillion shillings over time. Yeah, in the next 2 or so years, in accordance with the strategic plan that we have. You know, we want to increase the amount to be as big as it can be. You know, it's currently more or less at around 600 billion. You can imagine we have done a lot to ensure that we inculcate in Kenyans a saving culture, because that's the whole idea. And the president did well even to give a comparison of what obtains within the East African region. Yeah. You see, John, there is no way the economy is going to expand unless we inculcate that saving culture. You know, economists talk of savings equals investment. Out of what you save, you then invest. And that is the only way the economy is going to expand. And therefore, we want to guarantee Kenyans also, when they reach an age where they are no longer as productive, they are no longer as young and no longer as energetic, we can then be able to take care of their needs through the pension scheme that we've come up with. So the whole idea is to ensure that the standard of living of Kenyans is maintained even in their sunset age. Yeah.
Of course, with these adjustments to the NSSF rates, you know, even NHIF, through, of course, the formerly NHIF, now we're dealing with SHA, and even the housing levy has applied some pressure really on the payslip.
Yes.
The question is, tomorrow, being one of the guests that will be appearing there, does the Kenyan worker expect some relief tomorrow?
As government, we are doing our best. Yeah. I want to say that categorically, but you have to also ensure that it is done in a very structured and organized way, not in an arbitrary way, so that it hurts the economy. So there is a delicate balance here. It's a dicey situation. But nevertheless, what we have done as Ministry of Labor is we've established the wages councils. We have the General Wages Council, we have the Agricultural Wages Council, we have the Seafarers Wages Council that we established recently, and every sector is going to have a Wages Council. And the Wages Councils are comprised of both employers and representatives of employees and experts in the different sectors that we have in our economy, so that these people can sit and do an analysis, you know, and see whether the economy as it obtains currently will be able to carry, you know, the wage burden as we keep on increasing it. So I want to assure Kenyans that what we are doing is a very structured and organized way of doing things, unlike the way it was before. So they should expect a fair, you know, way of improving their standard of living through wage increment. Yeah, so let me just say, it's the president will make an announcement concerning the same tomorrow. I don't want to preempt what he will say, but we've done our analysis and we have advised him accordingly.
All right. I want to take you back a little bit, because you're talking about labor inspectors, of course, ensuring compliance. One of the complaints really that has come from unions, and particularly from the Court Secretary General, is non-compliance of labor laws by some of the employers we have within the boundaries of the Republic of Kenya. Of course, there's the complaints that will come from the employees regarding some of the conditions, and this to labor inspectors. But how do you ensure overall the compliance with labor laws by the employer?
I must confess that it has been a bit of a challenge ever since the enactment of the Constitution, the 2010 Constitution. The promulgation. And I'm saying so because previously, prior to that, it was the labor inspectors who would take employers to court. But as it is now, in accordance with the Constitution, it's actually the Directorate of Public Prosecution who is supposed to do it. So the good thing is we've had discussions with the Director of Public Prosecution. He seems to understand his work very well, by the way. I must commend him for what he's doing so far. So we're trying to build the capacity of the prosecutors, so that then they can be of assistance to us in handling these labor cases. And we've agreed with the Director of Public Prosecution that capacity building will be undertaken going forward. So I want to assure Kenyans that they will see more of these employers who are trampling upon their rights, who are not paying them what they are supposed to earn. They will be arraigned in court. They will be arraigned in court.
And I must make this correction very quickly, because I mentioned that the MP that is deceased now is the MP for Kasipul Kabondo. Actually, the MP for Kasipul Kabondo is Ivo Bara. It should be Kasipul, not Kasipul Kabondo. But all of them, of course, are constituencies within Homa Bay County. But Ungondo Were is the MP for Kasipul. One of the other complaints that have emanated largely during Labour Day celebrations again is the possibility that we have employers within the Republic of Kenya, some multinationals, but are not paying taxes within the Republic of Kenya. That is also a complaint we see from the union, some of them making those complaints. Working with your colleagues in government, of course, even with the PS Treasury and the minister in charge, how do you ensure that also within this sector we have them paying taxes in the Republic of Kenya?
With the current situation, the way it obtains, we cannot allow that to continue. You know, with the fiscal space as it is currently, because it's very limited, really we don't have the luxury to allow some people not to pay taxes. So we work very closely with Treasury, and whenever we get this information, we share it with them, so that then Kenya Revenue Authority officials can visit these companies, you know, inspect their books and ensure they pay. So every time we get this information, we take action. Yeah, because it's critical that every Kenyan and every company pays taxes as is required in accordance with the law.
In terms of labor rights and protection, how does Kenya fare in comparison with probably our neighbors or within the region?
I think we are doing pretty well. That's my perception. We are not yet at the level of developed economies, yeah, but Kenya, in comparison to other countries within East Africa and also within Africa, I think we are doing very, very well. And as I said earlier on, we are trying to build the capacity of the Labour Inspectorate. We are trying to build the capacity of the Occupational Safety and Health. With these two directorates, you know, being at the forefront to safeguard the interest of Kenyans, I believe with time we should be somewhere near where the Western European countries are.
Absolutely. I want to give you this camera so that you give a message to the Kenyan worker watching you tonight.
I want to assure the Kenyan worker that we are doing our best as Ministry of Labour, the various directorates that we have in place, even the Registrar of Trade Unions, trying to build the capacity of our trade unions so that they can fight for your rights. Things are looking good going forward, and therefore I want to ask you to have confidence in us that what we are doing is really for your own good.
Thank you very much, PS, for joining us tonight, and happy Labour Day celebrations tomorrow.
Thank you.
To see you
Thank
again
you, John.
at the venue of the celebrations. The Principal Secretary, State Department for Labour and Skills Development, Shadrach Mwadime, joining us tonight to have a conversation really on the status of labour rights and, of course, what you need to know ahead of the Labour Day celebrations, a very much well-deserved holiday, of course, for the Kenyan worker. We're taking a breather. We're coming back shortly.